Welcome to Riverdale, the Drinking Game, the podcast, the only Riverdale podcast that usually spends quiet reflection time in the Garden of Deliverance. I'm Joe Storms.
And I'm Meredith Laboon, and we're two high school friends turned 30-something drinking buddies, reliving one of our favorite shows while playing the drinking game we made the first watch through.
So, Meredith, you spoke of a crazy day today. What, pray tell, occurred?
God. Okay. Yeah. So I was very late coming to this recording session. And unfortunately part of that is because I do have a full-time job that I had to stay late at today. But then I got home and my whole kitchen was filled with smoke, and my husband Sean was cooking, but it was actually my fault because so a couple weeks ago was Thanksgiving, and my mother-in-law asked everybody to bring something to Thanksgiving, and I famously cannot cook, so I was asked to bring rolls. So what I should have done was just what I was told, which is go to the store and buy dinner rolls.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, no, I'm going to prove everybody wrong and try to make something and bake my own bread for Thanksgiving. So I tried to make this cheesy garlic bread situation, and I made a lot of mistakes when I was making this. Basically, you would have been so disappointed in me because you are a very good cook, and I know that you know how to make bread, and it went really badly because I didn't realize about proofing.
Yeah.
And also so it was a cheesy garlic bread, so you had to make this garlicky sauce, and I thought that you had to put the cheese in the sauce, but actually you were supposed to just sprinkle the cheese on top of the bread when it was all done. So I had this bread that I guess hadn't proofed all the way, and I put this cheesy saucy topping on the top, which isn't even what it was actually supposed to be, and had way more cheese in it than it was supposed to, which was really a shame because I used really expensive Gruyere. So I wasted a lot of really nice cheese. And I put it in the oven to bake it. I'm feeling real proud of myself. But it keeps rising, and then all of the cheesy sauce that I put on the top drips down off the top and lands on the bottom of the oven and starts to burn. And then my whole house filled with smoke because it was all burning. And Sean came in and was like, oh, just put a little bit of tinfoil underneath and it'll catch the cheese and it won't be hitting the bottom of the oven. And I'm like, great idea. So this is both of us being stupid because we put the tinfoil in there and it's catching the cheese, but not doing anything about the cheese that had already fallen onto the bottom of the oven and was already on fire.
That's sandwiched between the tinfoil, which is presumably now glued to the bottom of your oven.
Well, yes. So that's why my kitchen was filled with smoke today, because I haven't cleaned the oven yet. So obviously that day we had to turn off the oven, we realized after, and then open every window and door in the house and ventilate the whole thing, and it was fine. But then today Sean had forgotten that had happened and that I hadn't cleaned the oven yet. So he tried to heat up, I think it was a quiche for dinner, and the whole house filled with smoke again because the cheese from Thanksgiving continued to burn. So yeah, it was very chaotic, and then we had to defumigate our house a second time from the same thing.
Oh man.
So I put a big note on the oven that says no until I have time to buy oven off and clean the oven this weekend.
Well, at least it wasn't one of those situations where someone leaves a cutting board or something that's not supposed to.
God, and it
Yeah.
melts. No, it is or it was food. So I know I'll be able to clean it off, but it's just gonna take me some
Yeah,
time.
it's like all stuck to the bottom. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty bad. Hate it when that happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Should have just bought dinner rolls.
yeah. Have you ever tried the passing off of a store-bought item as your own?
No, and I need to do that more often.
Yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
do that?
I've never done that, but I I I don't know if I'd have the confidence to pull it off. It would have to come out I'd have to really be able to sell the idea that it was something I made on my own.
I think I could sell it, but the problem is, like, no one would believe me because I'm at
Yeah.
this point so famous for not being able to cook. Like, it would have to, I think I could sell it if I was like invited to a dinner party for the first time with someone who
Mm-hmm.
had like just met me and didn't know this about me
Yeah. They
and didn't
weren't
know anybody else that I know.
You hadn't burned them.
Yeah.
Like so
Yeah,
many
it's
dinner
rough.
rolls in
It
your
was rough.
oven.
I did bring a wine pairing, and I think I did a pretty good job with the wine pairing.
I
But
feel like you should just pencil yourself in to bring like the wine and cheese. I think that's where your strengths are.
oh my God, my mom was so brutal because I was like texting her as this was happening. And this is what she actually said to me in that moment.
Hmm.
She said, "It's my fault. I bought you too many Disney plushies instead of giving you cooking lessons."
Mm.
Um,
Kind of an odd dichotomy. I'm not sure those two things are mutually exclusive.
They're not, but like at the same time, it does explain a lot about me as an adult. She's like, "I
Yeah,
bought you too many Disney plushies, and I didn't make you learn how to cook." Um,
there was
but
no
she
money
said she's
left
like,
in the budget for cooking lessons. We spent
she's
it
like,
all.
she's like, "I could give you some tips now, but tip number one is just stick to a nice charcuterie."
Yeah. Something no bake.
And it's like mean to her too. I'm like, this is so savage and like 100% accurate.
Yeah, I mean, you're giving me too much credit in the cooking department. I'm a decent cook. I'm very methodical, and many have called me slow when it comes to cooking. Many a dinner has come out an hour after I originally
I don't think
intended
slow
it
is a
to.
bad thing though. That's like
Yeah,
you're putting in the time and the
yeah.
care.
Uh, I I love to like chop everything before I start cooking. I love doing stuff like that. I love having like little bowls of
Oh,
ingredients
I think
that
that's
I
the
can
worst
dump
part.
into a recipe. Love it. But
You cook like the Blue Apron way. Have you ever done like a Blue Apron kit?
yeah, where
Like
it's
they
like
make you do
pre-made.
that. They're like put everything in the little tiny bowls first and then begin. And I
Yeah,
hate that part.
I love doing prep, and then I've gotten pretty good at cleaning as I go. I will say, certain members of my household do not clean as they go.
Obviously, you're talking about Sophie.
Yes, my dog who does not clean anything. She
You
is,
know, Rory doesn't clean enough either. Like
yeah.
my dog. So rude.
Literally, as we're saying this, my dog is pulling trash out of the waste paper basket next to me.
Man, life with a lab. I'll
We
tell
have
you.
we have a Roomba, and I do think there is a sort of like dog Roomba synergy in that dogs handle the like messes that Roombas can't. Like if you drop some food on your kitchen floor, like my
Mm.
my dog is on top of that. Like they're gonna hoover it up before I even get a chance to clean anything. And Roombas can't do that because it's usually too like wet or something
Yeah,
for
it's like too
like
big for them to pick up.
yeah, it's like the wrong texture or something. It needs to be, it's not like dusty or dry. But then my dog creates a lot of hair, which the Roomba then has to manage because my dog probably sheds, a second dog's worth of hair on a monthly basis. So,
But have you tried getting a chow chow where instead of synergy, they actually refuse to pick up any of the food that you drop? Because, like, Rory, I didn't train her to do this. She just came this way. If I drop something on the ground, she will not eat it unless I ask her to eat it. Like, I'll say, like, please eat that chip that I dropped. And then she'll be like, oh, I guess so. And she'll, like, sniff it and, like, see. But unless she's, like, invited to, she will not touch it. And, like, you would think I had to, like, train her to do that. And she just, like, was born that way. It's really weird. But then she creates so much hair that it would be too much for even, like, 2 or 3 Roombas to keep up with. So we just vacuum every single day.
Her hair's really long too for a
Yeah.
dog. Yeah, that's yeah, my dog would eat virtually anything, and as evinced by the fact that she is trying to pull like some kind of crumb of food out of a waste paper basket that I don't even really throw food out in. Um, Sophie, stop.
Hold for yellow
Hold for
lab shenanigans.
hold for dog. Sophie, go to your crate. Go to your crate. She's good at that. She's very food motivated. Yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say, but Sophie's a good girl. But
Yeah.
she is. I over my Thanksgiving, I had the realization not being home for a little bit. I was like, people just like leave food out in their kitchen and they don't even think about if like where their dog is at all moments in time. Like, it's gotten so second nature to me to be like, where's the dog? Like, I need to know where, I need to know, I need to have, like, I need to be keeping, like, track of her in the back of my head at all times, because if there's ever a moment where I'm like, something is out in the kitchen that she could get at,
She will.
Like, and no one's around, because she's smart enough to realize that, like, if people aren't around, that is the time to strike. If people are around, she won't get into things. Like, you could be in a room not really paying attention to her and she won't try anything because she'll know she'll get in trouble. But if you're out of the room and she's somehow in a different room than you, which is pretty rare because she usually just follows everybody around all day, she will get into whatever she pleases because she knows all rules are off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Maybe no, never mind. I was going to say maybe Rory could show her a thing or two, but as we've learned, Rory unfortunately will just relentlessly bully her instead.
yeah.
And Sophie doesn't deserve that kind of treatment.
No, she doesn't.
All right. Well, speaking of, delicious snacks and beverages,
yeah.
should we go downstairs to Le Bon Nuit?
Yes, let's.
All right. So, Joe, what are you drinking today?
So I made an espresso martini
Oh, yum.
and I made it with maple syrup.
Ooh.
Because Riverdale, and I had it around.
Of course. If it's an option to put in maple syrup in a drink for this podcast, I think you've just got to.
And I made the espresso like low calf so I can go to sleep later, but just a little pick me up for the pod.
Nice.
I felt like I needed to pick me up. It's been kind of a long week. A lot of travel, a lot of longer days at work. So need a little shot of quarter shot of espresso.
Nice. I'm jealous. I love that for you.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
So I'm going to be kind of boring the next few. Well, maybe I won't necessarily be boring, but I am soft launching Dry January a little bit early. I really chose the path of violence heading into the holidays, but here we are. So maybe I won't be boring. Maybe in the upcoming weeks I'll do like a fun mocktail or something like that. But this week I'm just keeping it low budget, low effort, and having a nice little LaCroix.
Yeah, I think we need to record on like probably an actual weekend so you can have some time to like prepare.
Yeah, to like concoct something.
Yeah.
Actually, though, it's pretty easy because they sell a lot of good little mocktail things at my corner store. Because, like, I think we've talked about this on the pod before, but in Pennsylvania, there's, like, kind of strict and annoying laws around purchasing alcohol. Like, you can only buy it at, like, official state stores or, like, certain grocery stores and, like, things like that. So you can't just, like, buy a 6-pack of beer at your local corner store. So at our local corner store instead, they sell like all of these cute little like mocktail kits and like canned mocktails and stuff, like the phony Negronis and like, you know, little mojito canned things that are like 0 ABV and stuff like that. Which makes it really easy when you are doing like a dry January or just not drinking for whatever reason. So maybe I'll do one of those fun ones, or maybe I'll like craft my own thing for next time. Because yeah, I think it'd be fun to share some like mocktail recipes on here. But this
good.
time,
Yeah.
just keeping it basic.
Keeping it basic with a
Yeah.
LaCroix.
Yeah.
What flavor LaCroix?
Lime.
Lime.
Which I do like having a lime LaCroix as like a substitute to a gin and tonic.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
got
like
sort of the basic same idea going on.
Yeah, like you can put it in like a cute little glass with like a little actual slice of lime in there and like kind of have that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I did want, so it is currently -7 today in
Oh my God.
Grant in North Dakota. So I was really thinking like, should I make like a mulled apple cider? I had some mulled apple cider over the weekend, and it was really good. So I was thinking about that, but it was like too much work to like to like mull something before the show on short notice. So, but yeah, I live on like in a frozen wasteland, where it snows like every other day, and it's just brutally cold and windy.
Oh my God. That's brutal.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great incentive to move back to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's probably not -7 on December 11th.
No,
Very
it
often in Philly.
actually, it was warm today, but it was miserable out because it was like 60 degrees, which is unseasonably warm, but it was pouring rain and like high wind because we're kind of like in the middle of this weird warm front, and then tomorrow it's going to be in like the 30s again.
Weird.
So yeah, it was a real crummy day here, but not -7.
Yeah, like a nice mulled cider or a mulled wine would have
Yeah, I
really
could have
hit
gone
the
for
spot.
a
A
mulled
glue
cider
vine.
today. A glue
Yeah.
vine. They actually, that's another thing they have at my local corner store. They have like a 0 ABV glue vine. So
Nice.
maybe that's the thing.
Love a glue vine.
Yeah.
So wait, are you doing dry January through January, or are you doing dry January in December?
No,
And
I'm
then
doing it. So I'm really only like soft launching it in December. Like I might have one glass of wine at Christmas, or like they do like a Yuletide thing at the Renaissance Fair, and we're gonna go to that. I might have one little cup of the mulled wine there. So like I'm not going like fully out until actual January. But yeah, like I'll probably have less than 3 drinks of alcohol for like the entire month of December. So it's basically,
yeah.
because I really liked doing dry January, but I'm excited to see like actually hitting closer to like a 6 to 8 week mark, just like the benefits of not drinking, because I felt really good last year when I did it, and I felt like it was over kind of quickly.
Yeah.
And actually, I have a friend who did dry January with me. She was like my accountability buddy last year, and she just kept going for like months afterwards. And then she got pregnant, and she's going to give birth in February. So by the time she gives birth, she'll have gone over a full year without drinking.
Wow. Good for her.
I know. I'm like so proud of her, and I'm like kind of jealous, and I'm like, I don't have to be jealous. I can just like also do that if I want.
Yeah.
So
this conversation is so bad for our podcast brand.
I know. I'm sorry, everybody.
No,
I'm
it's
supposed to
fine.
be binge drinking.
It's very positive. These are very positive goals. Good for you, Meredith.
But yeah, it's not bye forever. It's just it's not goodbye, it's farewell. It's see you later. Or however the fuck that phrase goes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Now that we've covered that, do you think it's time to get into the gospel?
Yeah,
On that sobering note.
on that temperate note of temperance. Let's go to the gospel after this break. For this week's episode, the congregation should listen for the following rules as they watch along at home. Rule 34, Archie acknowledges football or music. Rule 69, weird Catholic shit. Rule 13, a cover of a song. Rule 14, a character makes a pop culture reference that makes you say, what the fuck. Rule 12, Kevin sploosh. Rule 95, black characters outnumber white characters in a scene. Rule 94.5, any Betty gotcha moment directed at either of her parents. Rule 20, every time Betty calls someone an unnecessary nickname, i.e. Arch and Jug. Rule 37, someone gets broken out of the Sisters of Quiet Mercy building.
And now it's time for the Gospel according to Roberto, Chapter 6, Faster, Pussycats, Kill, Kill. So, at the top, I just have to talk about the title of this episode because this was a pop culture reference that made me say what the fuck.
Really?
Yeah, it's almost exactly the same name as this like 1960s movie called Faster Pussycat, singular, Kill Kill. Yeah, and it's about, I mean, I have not seen the movie. I just read the Wikipedia article about this movie, so bear with me here, but I think it's about like go-go dancers who become like assassins in this kind of like Charlie's Angels but bad type of situation.
Wait, like they're evil Charlie's Angels?
No, like they're just committing like crime.
Yeah, like evil Charlie's Devils, if you will.
I guess so.
Would it be Charles's Devils or Chuck's Devils?
Oh, definitely Chuck's Devils because of like the Chuck Bass of it all. Which I know you haven't watched Gossip Girl yet, but soon. But yeah, it's like this weird 1960s movie, and from what I can tell, like there are no stars that I've heard of before who were in the movie. It seems like it was like critically unacclaimed, like not a big box office hit. But then when you look at like the pop culture references section of this Wikipedia article, there are like many, many things that are named after this movie. So maybe it's just because it has a catchy name. Maybe it's like a cult classic that I've just been sleeping on for years. But yeah, interesting episode title.
Maybe, is it one of those like killer clowns from outer space type cult classic movies where it's not a good movie? It's not like an important movie, but it has like a weird cult following and it's campy or something?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. That was kind of the vibe I got. So,
okay.
Especially just the fact that like Roberto would choose to reference this. I'm guessing it's probably pretty campy and like pretty delightful. So maybe we should watch it at some point, or if any listeners have watched it and already done the work, let us know.
Yeah.
But I had to Google that one because it, like, the title of this just stuck out to me.
Yeah, write a 500-word review of Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill in the leave it in the comments of our section on any podcasting app you choose.
Yes, along with a 5-star rating.
Yes.
So this episode also is kind of unique in that it opens with a flashback, which we don't see very often, which is just like a young Betty and Polly like talking in Betty's room while Jughead narrates over them about the concept of fear, which kind of like sets the tone for the episode a little bit.
Yeah. It was an odd start to the episode in terms of like there's like a lot of people dealing with like real shit, and then Archie's worried about his talent show, right? Like
Well,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
fear.
yeah. Once
Isn't it
again,
mostly?
yeah, the fear. Okay, so yeah, because Archie gets a thing in the fear thing too. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, everybody's like, like fearful about like murder in the
Hmm.
town and things like that. And then Archie like picks up a Halloween mask from like an old box, and it's like this like wolfy looking mask. And he relates that like throughout the episode to his
Mm.
musical detractors.
Yeah.
In his very Archie way.
Relatable.
So relatable. What a guy. So, okay, getting into the actual story of this episode. So, it starts with Betty inviting Jughead over for breakfast, and immediately it seems kind of weird. They're making this like awkward conversation with Alice, and then Betty like makes like a look at Jughead, and he asks to go to the bathroom, knowing that Alice will insist on showing him to the bathroom. So Betty uses the diversion to look through her mother's checkbook. It seems like a lot of work just to get the opportunity to look through her mother's checkbook, but it does work. And she finds that there have been checks made out to a group called the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. And this is when we get into the weird Catholic shit. I'm so excited. I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she and Jughead look up the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. It turns out that it's like some kind of religious school / rehabilitation program for delinquent girls. And Betty and Jughead are like getting a real weird vibe from this website, and they decide that they need to check it out for themselves and try to talk to.
Yeah. This was our first not our first drink of the episode, but it's the first of a new rule, weird Catholic shit, Rule 69, nice.
Nice.
Where and I had it when they were looking at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy website on a computer. I thought that like when they're looking it up after finding out this information, they're just like huddled around this computer, and the Sisters of Quiet Mercy do have a presence on the internet, in case anyone was wondering. And yeah, like their whole vibe. I forget what Jughead calls them. It's like they're like, I think Betty's like, is it some kind of like convent or something? And Jughead's like, no, it's like a home for troubled youths or something like that. So it's, yeah. And if the listeners aren't aware, we've themed our podcast, if you haven't picked up on it yet,
If you
around
haven't noticed.
largely around this rule and through line of the show that much like Roberto, we are we went to Catholic school, and there's something both comforting and upsetting about Catholicism as it's depicted in this show to us, I think.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like very eerie and unsettling, and at the same time very like familiar. And it, I don't know, like I I like revisiting it in this way. Like it just it
The Catholic Church has this weird mix of being like their message being like on a very fundamental being like not like totally objectionable, but then having like a bunch of nefarious like stuff going on, a bunch of arcane rituals and hierarchy and like all these little like segments you can point to where like this was, pretty fucked up. Like the Sisters of Quiet Mercy, as we'll find out, definitely echo real things that happened
oh yeah.
in various countries with the Catholic Church in those countries. So it's
Yeah, I would love to have a drink with Roberto Gary Sacasa and just like unpack like the trauma of the cult of Catholic school.
yeah.
Like it is so culty, and like for you, Joe, I feel like you were in it on a whole nother level because, like, you also came from a Catholic family. I didn't. I just went to Catholic school, but I still got, like, super indoctrinated into, like, the culture of it all and really, like, bought into a lot of it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it, like, now it's so interesting because I feel really, like, icked out by a lot of it in many ways, but also there's aspects of it, like the arcane stuff that you're talking about, and, like, I also think Catholicism is, like, very metal. Like, there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
talk about, like, drinking blood and stuff
Yeah.
like that. That's very, like, Angelina Jolie circa 2000 with, like, Billy Bob Thornton's blood in the vial around her neck.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think is, like, really interesting. It's, like, a weird dichotomy. And
There's something very old world and pagan about
yeah,
it that
it's
you
very
don't
pagan.
see in modern religions for the most part.
Totally.
Like all forms of Protestantism kind of threw that fun stuff out, and it's a little too self-serious, a little not quite mystical enough. There's like a mysticism. I don't know.
It's like,
And
well, it's
yeah,
very witchy, which is funny because, like, not to bring it back to Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but her witch school in that show is basically just satanic Catholic school. And I think that's, like, such a genius take. And I think he just does such a good job of capturing those, like, dark aspects of Catholicism.
yeah,
And yeah, I think it's like really interesting to kind of revisit it all through his lens.
yeah.
Yeah, so
So
we like it.
yeah, we're fans.
Yeah. Also, too, I feel like, and I haven't watched this show, but I know that right now Roberto Aguirre Sacasa is the writer on the Pretty Little Liars reboot. And I have heard through the grapevine that the Sisters of Quiet Mercy appear in that show, which does make Pretty Little Liars part of the Archieverse.
Yeah.
Okay, now stay with me. Another thing I know about Pretty Little Liars, again, not having watched this, is I'm pretty sure it takes place in the main line, which is like the rich suburbs of Philly. So,
Where we're from originally.
where we're from,
Yeah.
yeah, like your Catholic school was in the main line.
Maybe. Yeah.
And actually mine was too.
Yeah.
Um,
There are many a Catholic school in the main line.
many a Catholic school, yeah, including our two Catholic schools. And what I'm implying is that we live in the Archieverse
The tracks. I
by
mean, that would
extension.
explain why this show appeals to us so deeply.
Yeah, we either live or lived for a time in the Archieverse. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
exactly sure how it works, but you know, the my murder board looks like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the show. So, meanwhile, in Archie's actual Archieverse, it's time for the school variety show, and obviously Kevin, as the only gay in school, is the casting director for the variety show. And Archie goes on to audition. He's singing his, like, original song, but he gets heckled by the football team and he gets stage fright and runs off the stage and, like, never sings it. Which I think is so mean that, like, his own team is heckling him. And
Hmm.
also really confusing because a lot of the heckling in this episode comes from Reggie. Like, at one point, Reggie says, like, stick to football. And it's like, I thought Reggie wanted to be the football captain. And Reggie's only going to be the football captain if Archie keeps playing music. So, like, the
Yeah.
himbos are himboing this episode.
Yeah. So a couple things. So in like a 2 minute span during this scene, there were four drinks. So there's Archie acknowledging football and music twice. No, three times because he wants to try out for the variety show. Uh, the football element. I think someone yells like "stick to football" at him or something, like him being
Yeah, that's
em-
Reggie. Yeah.
embarrassed by it. Then him at the talent show. Or no. So there's those two things, and then uh, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. So But there are two drinks actually for the talent for this scene.
For the audition. Yeah.
For the audition.
Yeah. So does not go well for Archie.
Mm-hmm.
Does go well for the drinking game. And then after the audition at lunch, Archie makes the mistake of showing some vague interest in the actual plot of the show and like asks Betty and Jughead what they're doing.
This scene was so weird because you're like, oh, right. They're on the same show.
They're on the same show. And Archie is allegedly both Betty's best friend and Jughead's best friend.
And he has no
all of a
idea
sudden, the two of them are hanging out all the time without him. He has no idea what's going on. And he's like, oh yeah, like, you guys are here. What are you doing? And they basically tell him to buzz off and that he'll ruin their stealth operation. Because it sounds like they're trying to break into Sisters of Quiet Mercy, and Jughead's like, think about it, Archie. Like, if we bring the whole Scooby Squad, it's over for us.
This was...
They're so mean to him.
Yeah, this was also I think this whole... Actually, this was the scene with, like, 4 drinks in it, because it was...
Yeah, there's a lot that happens in this scene. Yeah,
because there's, like, there's a cover of a song, I think. I think Wild Thing is played as they enter this scene.
I didn't even catch that.
And then it's like the Jughead making the Scooby Gang reference is a pop culture what the fuck moment, because it's also like a little too on the nose. Like, I feel like Archie Comics, like, it would not shock me if Archie Comics actually... like one of its cartoon versions or its comic book version or something had a legitimate crossover with Scooby-Doo. Like, there's a very similar energy, just like a couple decades apart to both those.
To me, it felt like a very appropriate pop culture reference in the way that, like, when Betty makes the Nancy Drew reference, like, a couple episodes ago, like, it... Yeah, maybe it's a what the fuck in that it's so on the nose, but I'm like, oh, this is the type of media that I would, like, expect these kids to be referencing.
But like, Scooby-Doo, like, is too many years after Archie Comics is set.
Because when is this set?
Well, this show is set in, like, 2017, but everyone drives cars from the 50s.
But they're drinking High Point coffee.
And they're drinking High Point coffee from the 90s. But the actual show, they keep referencing stuff from 2017. So at the very least it's there, but like in like 1950s Archie wholesome world, they wouldn't have Scooby-Doo wouldn't have come out yet. So
yeah. It's once again, it's confusing. So okay, fine, it's a what the fuck.
Okay, so there's a Kevin Sploosh in this scene, and then there's another Archie acknowledging footballer music in this scene, which maybe I'm getting ahead of myself when Kevin basically just lets him in the talent show because he's heard him sing before.
I know. Well, yeah, like. So, yeah, Archie gets told to, like, buzz off. He just goes back to thinking about football music.
Yeah.
You know, stay in your lane, Archie.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane. But, yeah, so what happens is Veronica comes in as the self-titled Veronica Ex Machina. And she swoops in and saves the day for Archie. She's spoken to Kevin. And, yeah, he's agreed to cast him in the talent show anyway, even though... he obviously bombed the audition, and Veronica sweetens the deal a little bit by volunteering to sing with him so that he doesn't have to be alone on stage because he's so nervous. And I think that's, like, really sweet. And she's like, don't worry, I'm a great singer. And everyone just believes her.
Veronica is a great friend in these early seasons, and
she really is.
Honestly, this plot is, like, about the most relatable Archie gets, because I feel like he's so, like, type A and take charge normally, and, like, treated like a minor deity in the town of Riverdale for so much of the show that it's nice to just see him, like, struggle with something and feel
Mm-hmm.
insecure.
Yeah, about like a normal high school thing,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
playing guitar in the talent show. I
yeah,
love this for him.
yeah. For the
Yeah.
most part, the show in this first season does a pretty good job of staying relatively grounded, which it will struggle with in later seasons. But like this is the type of thing where it you don't just the show isn't just totally off the rails and you can't empathize with any of the characters at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's nice.
yeah.
In the talent show, obviously the Pussycats are going to be headlining, but we do get some Pussycat drama. Josie and Val are butting heads during rehearsal, and Val makes a comment that like she doesn't get this kind of drama when she rehearses with Archie. Josie's upset because she wants her to sing with the Pussycats exclusively. So Val just kind of impulsively quits in favor of like singing more with Archie instead.
Yeah. This was the black characters outnumbering white characters in a scene because it was, I think, literally only the
Only black
Pussycat.
characters in a scene.
Three is more than zero.
Yeah.
Um,
Which it really feels like this season that this rule is kind of aging like milk because in this
yeah,
season there are like a lot of black characters who have important stuff to do. Like I this rule made more sense in like season 8 when we were like, where did all of
hmm
these black characters go? Like, why aren't they in the
yeah,
show anymore? But in
because
the early seasons it's kind of weird because like these are actual characters who
I
appear a lot.
I mean we're not very I don't as I recall we're not very far away spoilers but not much of a spoiler from Val and the other member of the Pussycats who's not Josie whose name is
Mel.
escaping Mel just disappearing from the
Yeah.
show like
With like
pretty
no
much
explanation.
yeah they kind of just like I think Val is just like in the show less and less and then eventually they're both just gone and like Josie is kind of the only uh black character other than her mom
And then
left on
she
the show.
disappears, but she's like explained because she goes to be
Yeah.
on another show.
Like a recurring or like secondary character for the next few seasons, but there will be like this rule, which I guess we can get into more detail some other time, is because of that. So yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
But
aging
right
like
now it
milk.
feels really weird.
It's one of our many rules that like Archie acknowledging football or music that is aging like milk.
Yeah. Yeah, especially as we do season 1. And it'll make sense when you guys are older. So, meanwhile in adult Riverdale, it's Hermione's first day of work at Fred's construction company, and she immediately looks at the books and learns that Fred is completely broke. Which not sure why he's even hiring a bookkeeper if his finances are, I mean, obviously he needs someone to figure it out, but like he barely even has enough to make payroll for the actual construction workers. So like, what are you doing, Fred? But he mentions that he's been trying to get a contract building a development on the old drive-in movie theater lot. And if that sounds familiar, it's because that's the development that Lodge Industries owns when Hermione did all that like weird backdoor stuff with Mayor McCoy to get that property. But Fred doesn't know that Hermione is the owner. He just knows that he's been like liaisoning through Mayor McCoy and like trying to get her to put in a good word with like this mysterious business owner. So instead of just saying like, oh great, it's me, I'm Lodge Industries, Hermione offers to host them all for dinner at her house to try to like smooth things over and quote unquote like woo over this business conglomerate, which is very weird. And then they start kissing, and Veronica walks up just in time to see them kissing through the window, and obviously she's shocked because her mother is in fact still married. And then we get the title card, which is at 9 minutes and 17 seconds. So sorry if you wanted to finish your drink, but not
Nope,
this time.
not yet. No. Yeah, that was that scene is definitely I mean I kind of like the Fred Hermione flirtation so far and it feels somewhat unproblematic because we don't really know anything about Hiram. You get the sense like he's kind of crooked because he's in jail, and no one really seems to like deny that. Everyone sort of talks to him like he's in jail, but like, and it's like hard for Veronica, but no one's like he was framed. Like no one's like he doesn't deserve to be in jail. Everyone's kind of like everyone kind of seems to think that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
and, and the and it's basically strongly implied that Archie's mom is not in the picture anymore. So there's like a flirtation that's been going on for the last few episodes, and it seems pretty natural and not too like scandalous, except
Yeah.
obviously to Veronica,
Except to Veronica.
who
It
I
seems
think
like
has a reasonable reaction to it.
yeah. Yeah. It seems like to everybody but Veronica this seems like totally fine, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, her reaction makes perfect sense because
Yeah.
it is still her dad.
Yeah, yeah, and I think definitely that would be like the way a normal child of almost any age would react to that kind of thing happening with their parents. Yeah.
Yeah, so Fred and Hermione just are fully dating at this point. They make plans to go to the variety show together. But Fred does take the time to talk to Archie about it first, and their conversation is very like short and sweet and like no problemo. Archie's like, yeah, all good with me. Mom's gonna be happy for you. Like, good for you. And yeah, neither one of them seems to be considering at all that Hermione is married. It's just like nothing.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's
I think
definitely like
their conversation feels more about like Fred's dating somebody again after splitting with Archie's mom, and less like Fred's dating a married woman after splitting with Archie's mom.
yeah. Uh, I also thought in this conversation with Archie, it was kind of cute that he was like, "Oh, I bought tickets for all my crew to come see you at the talent show."
I know, he's so proud. Oh my gosh.
There's a lot
It's
of really
so-
good Fred moments in this episode, actually, where he's
I
just
know.
like the most adorable dad in the world, and this is one of them.
He is such a cute dad, and like, man, I love Fred so much. He is in this rewatch, he's like my favorite character.
He's amazing. He
He's
has like
amazing.
he's always every scene he's in is great. Every scene he's in, he's just charming and likable and like just the platonic ideal of a dad.
I know. Yeah, I have such a dad crush on him. But
Yeah.
also, like, I say he's my favorite character, and then my actual favorite character, Cheryl, isn't in this episode. So,
I don't think she
no, she doesn't appear at all.
You're right. Yeah, she's not in it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of, like, adults this episode.
Big
A lot
adult
a lot of
episode.
big grown-up stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so, meanwhile, in Grown Up World, we also get a lot of Josie's parents. So
Mhm.
we get her mom, which I don't know her mom's first name. I've just been calling her Mayor McCoy.
Yeah.
And then her dad, we meet, his name is Miles, and he is a real downer and just like hates everything. But we learn that she gets like a lot of pressure from her parents. So Mayor McCoy learns that Val has left the Pussycats, and she really lays the pressure on Josie to find a new girl. And she's like, oh, find someone who's like pretty and thin and a woman of color because of our branding, but like not as pretty and thin as you. And it's pretty clear that from the conversation that her parents have very high expectations for what exactly she's doing with the Pussycats, and that this is like a business and like her future, and not just her and her friends having a band together in high school. Like, it's very serious.
Yeah. There is something I found very odd about this scene with the whole like find another woman of color. It's like part of our brand. There's something about the way her mom says this where it's almost like alluding to the fact that like they're paying lip service to the idea of diversity, or like a certain sort of performative like type of I don't know, like all black, all person of color band, something like that, that is inauthentic. And I find that weird because the show does that all the time. Where
Yeah.
there's like bizarre performative like progressivism where it's like here is a episode about race, and then they're like we're gonna solve racism or something like that, but it always feels a little performative, and it does it with
Yeah.
other subjects too.
Well,
So
it's very like progressive in the way that a lot of media was circa 2017.
yeah,
Like, yeah, this like weird performative feminism, like that isn't truly intersectional but wants to like seem like it is,
yeah,
and is in many ways like very tokenized. Like it takes on a lot that Riverdale has no business taking on, I think.
yeah. And in the early seasons, it's less guilty of this, but I just I find it kind of funny or ironic that there's a character sort of being framed as leaning into that, and then
Yeah.
the
But I
show
wonder
will
how
lean in.
intentional that is. Like, I wonder
Yeah,
if that's intentional and like self-referential, or if
yeah,
that's just the show Riverdale thinking that they're,
being a little tone deaf.
yeah.
And this is also a drink because it's Josie and her mom in a scene by the
That's right.
alone. It's another
We're
Rule
gonna have a lot of
95.
those. We're gonna have a lot of those.
There's a
'Cause
good number in
obviously,
this episode.
if you
Yeah.
didn't get from the title of this episode, it's a big Pussycats episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, fortunately for Josie, the answer to her problems basically falls right into her lap, because Archie, so since Val quit, Archie has recruited Val to sing with him in the talent show, and Veronica walks in on the two of them rehearsing and is like, what are you doing? And Archie's like, oh, don't worry, you don't have to sing with me anymore because Val's gonna do it. And obviously Veronica's upset and feels betrayed, and she says, you have no loyalty whatsoever, you Ginger Judas, which, chef's kiss. And she also throws in that she's just like his dad and that he's having an affair with her married mom. And Val's like real uncomfortable at this point, but it turns into a big argument between them. And it concludes with her immediately marching right into the Pussycats rehearsal room and volunteering to join. And she's like, I can sing and I have anger issues and let's fucking go. And Josie's cool with that. And the three of them, so now it's Veronica, Josie, and Mel strut through the hall in their pussycat ears so that everybody knows. And we see Archie and Val like shocked Pikachu face in the hall, obviously both jealous but for different reasons, like watching them walk through the hallway.
A few things about this scene. First, there were two drinks back to back. I consider Ginger Judas a pop culture reference, but maybe it's not.
I was
Maybe
wondering
it's
if you were
not.
going to call it pop culture reference or weird Catholic shit.
Oh, you're right. Maybe it should be weird Catholic shit. Yeah, I'll make it weird
But,
Catholic shit.
¿por qué no los dos?
Yeah, half a dozen of one, six of the other, or whatever the expression is. And then the other one is black characters outnumber white characters in a scene when Veronica joins the Pussycats, where there are two black characters and zero white characters, because as we've learned, and I learned in real life when I first watched this, Veronica is not white.
Yeah,
Which
this is
like
the episode where we were shocked Pikachu face when
yeah.
we realized that Veronica was not white.
Yeah, and like
Yeah.
of course in retrospect, like the actress is not white, but like she's Hispanic, and the character of Veronica is so rich white girl coded, other than pretty much her parents calling her Mija, that from time to time, that it never occurred to me that she wasn't supposed to be
No.
playing a white woman.
And I think it goes to show by episode 6 how much we had been drinking.
Yes.
Because I'm guessing we probably watched all of these that we've watched so far in the first day.
Yeah.
Like, this is probably
maybe.
still...
This could be the second
maybe day 2, but this is probably... certainly still weekend 1 of watching Riverdale for us, like, in real time. And it just goes to show how much we were drinking, because there have been several Mijas before this, but we did not notice. Like, this episode was how we learned that Veronica is Hispanic.
Well, to be fair, the Mijas are like a blink and you can miss them kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And, like... And she speaks French so much more than that.
Yeah, that's true.
like, and when she speaks French, she really, like, hits it hard. And Hermione will be like, "Hey, mija."
That's true. Yeah, we get a lot more weird French shit.
Yeah, like
mija.
I literally think the only reference that they're Hispanic before this is that they say mija, that they call Veronica mija. Hermione does.
Yeah.
So I like, maybe there's one other thing, but like, and her last name's Lodge. Like, it just did not, like, maybe it was stupid on my part, but it did not occur to me. And I'm like, and the scene before this, Josie's mom is just like, it needs to be a person of color. And then Veronica shows up and they're like, perfect. And I'm like,
I know. I think when we watched this in real time, we were like, wait a minute, didn't they just say they were looking for a woman of color? And like, that's how we pieced it together.
Yeah, we were like very confused.
Oh my god. Yeah, I was like, I don't know, just not paying attention to like any of that family stuff. And then like as the seasons go on, I feel more and more stupid. Like she doesn't have a quinceañera. She has a confirmation, but it's like very quinceañera coded. And there's like all this other family stuff that comes up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my god, remember Hermosa? Oh, I can't wait for the later seasons. The show goes off the rails.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the part of the weird part is they just made these characters Hispanic, and in the comics they're just white people. That's part of it too. Like Veronica, the character in Archie comics, is a white woman, and that's why her name is Veronica Lodge, and not a name that is Spanish.
Yeah.
Camila Mendez.
I mean, obviously that didn't raise any alarm bells for us.
Yeah, like we looked at the actress and we were like, oh, I guess she's just supposed to be playing a white woman. Okay.
We are so stupid.
But a different show doesn't make her like as rich white girl breakfast at Tiffany's or whatever coded as she is.
Well, yeah. Okay. So like, oh my God. Have you watched the movie, Do Revenge that she's in? Okay. First of all, you have to watch Do Revenge. It is so good. She stars in it. And, oh my God, what's the name of that girl? Ethan Hawke's daughter, Maya Hawke. Mm-hmm. She's in it. And they play these like rich prep school girls who do revenge. It's very funny. But her character in that, similar to this, is also this like very popular, like rich bitch type of character. But her character in that, it's like she's obviously Hispanic. Mm-hmm. And like she's not white coded in any like weird way, mm-hmm. like she is on this show. Like she's not like throwing around weird French words and talking about, you know, her butler whose name is Smithers and yeah. But yeah, the movie is really good.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, back to Riverdale. So Betty and Jughead take their stealth operation to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy, in which Betty walks right up to the front desk and gives her government name and ID and asks to speak to Polly. So, not very stealthy. Not sure why they bothered calling it a stealth operation. Good job, Betty and Jughead. But they do get access to Polly. They learn that she's taking her daily silent reflection in the Garden of Deliverance, which the Catholic is Catholicing. The Catholic shit is popping off. The Garden of Deliverance.
When you hear someone who clearly went to Catholic school, like, make up a name for something Catholic, like, it's just like chef's kiss, because you could do it in a way that doesn't feel authentic, and they actually have stupid names for stuff like this, where it's like, you're like, that doesn't sound real, but then it does. There's a Garden of Deliverance somewhere.
Yeah, like, there really is. Oh my God, there's such a good example of this. There's a content creator who I just love, 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 called Greedy Peasant. And, like, Joe, if you ever get on Instagram, like, only get on Instagram to follow Greedy Peasant. He's so amazing, and he does all kinds of weird Catholic shit.
I am on Instagram. I have an Instagram account.
Well, I know, but you only follow that one Garfield account.
I'm pretty sure the only purpose for Instagram is to follow a creator who makes Pokemon Garfield mashup monstrosities, and if anyone else is using Instagram for anything different, I pity them. But
you don't even follow this show.
No.
Okay, well, I'm not saying you have to follow this show, but I am saying that you have to follow Greedy Peasant. He's so good. But I have some of his merch, and one of it is this, like, Catholic school style sweatshirt with his made up parish on it, where he does, like, church pageants and things like that. And his parish is called Our Lady of the Most Sacred Blood of the Most Holy Martyr. And, like, that's exactly the kind of shit that Catholic shit is called.
Yeah, I love a blink, and you might think it's, if you're not paying close
attention, might think it's real.
You might think it's real, yeah.
The line is, like, razor thin. Oh, I should have worn that shirt to record this. Just pretend that I am wearing that shirt.
Wear it the next time Weird Catholic shit comes up, like, in the next episode or
two.
And
it will again soon.
Yeah, it'll come up.
Yeah, but yeah, for lovers of Weird Catholic shit, Greedy Peasant is just everything. And so is this. Yeah, so Polly's in the Garden of Deliverance. She's wearing, like, a very Catholic school type of uniform. It's like this blue dress with this, like, white Peter Pan collar situation, and then, like, a red cardigan. It's kind of like Catholic school with, like, a little dash of Handmaid's Tale with the red cardigan. And she turns around, and the first thing that we notice is that Polly is very pregnant. So that's a bombshell. But she seems happy about it. And Polly sits down Betty and just gets into her whole story right away with, like, no questions asked. So Polly explains that she and Jason were going to run away together because neither of their parents wanted them to be together, and Polly was pregnant. And she details their entire plan on how they were going to escape, including that Jason's car is hidden cleverly underneath of Blossom Maple Farm's billboard, which feels like a very obvious place to look for Jason's car. But anyway, but Hal and Alice found out before they could make their escape. So Polly was shipped off to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy, and presumably all this was happening, like, right around the same time that Jason originally went missing. So, like, around the 4th of July. And Polly starts talking about, like, how is Jason? I'm ready to escape. Like, what's the new plan? And it's pretty apparent that Polly does not know that Jason is dead. Which is a big shock on many levels, but also one of them being that Betty's parents told Betty that Polly had a relapse after she found out what happened to Jason. So obviously they've been lying a pretty good deal, and Polly's gonna have some shocking news.
Yeah.
So Betty's trying to figure out how to tell her this, but Polly kind of, like, sees it on her face and pieces it together. And then Alice turns up because obviously Betty gave her government name, like, I'm Elizabeth Cooper, here to see Polly Cooper. So obviously they called Betty's mom and they were like, just so you know, Betty's here. So she comes to pick them up. And she's removing Betty and Jughead from the scene while Polly is taken away screaming because she's realized that Jason is dead and all this shit is happening.
Yeah. I had 4 drinks
Okay.
for this at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. Just when they show up and they kind of like the general vibe when they show up, like just how like full of nuns and institutional it is, like rings very true to me
Oh, yeah.
as being something both weird and Catholic. Then obviously the amazing line, she takes her silent reflection time in the Garden of Deliverance. That's some weird Catholic shit right there. When the nuns, all I have in my notes is the nuns institutionalized Polly. So I guess that must be when they ferry her away or something, and like after
Yeah, I
the
think that's
meeting
when they
goes
like drag
south.
her away screaming. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, and then finally, I have when Alice Cooper says to Polly that she pays the sisters good money. You don't think they would notify me when Polly has a visitor? Which kind of a odd thing. Yeah, not something I would expect from sisters, but I guess that makes sense.
It's weird that she phrases it in a way that she needs to bribe the sisters
Hmm.
and not in a way of like, my underage pregnant daughter is living here and the sisters are going to inform me if she is a visitor
I took it as being like
as like
almost.
her legal
Yeah, I
guardian.
took it as less of a bribe and more like crass and mercenary than that. Like they take my money, so they do what I say.
Mm,
Like nuns do. Nuns do this.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Famous nuns
yeah,
famously take money despite,
yeah,
taking a vow of poverty or whatever.
yeah. And my other thoughts on this scene are, I think the actress who plays Polly, whose name I don't remember, is did a really good job in these scenes because
Yeah.
you are supposed to you. I think Betty goes in assuming that she's being held against her will for some reason, or there's something afoot here, and Polly needs to be rescued. But during the scene, there's like a sort of manic energy that the actress has where you're not quite sure if she's crazy or not the entire scene. Like there's a lot of like her getting a little weirdly intense at moments and seeming a little like delusional or something, like a touch delusional. That really is like threading that needle of like, is she crazy? Does she belong here? Kind of a thing.
Yeah, and also you don't know like how much of this is circumstance and how much of this is like her.
Hmm.
Like, is she just becoming a little unhinged from living in this home for
Exactly. Yeah.
months and months and not knowing what's going on with Jason? Even when she makes the realization about Jason, like I couldn't help but wonder if this was the first time she was getting this information or not, or if
Hmm.
like maybe she had found out and just like shoved it down so far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, she does a really good job of like layering this performance in a really intriguing way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I thought she was the strongest part of these scenes in terms of like an acting performance.
for sure. Yeah. So back in the town, Veronica goes to her first Pussycats rehearsal, but she is texting during practice, which does not go well with Josie because this is a professional operation. So they end up getting into a weird fight about who has more daddy issues. Meanwhile, Archie and Val are also arguing during their practice because Val is missing that like structure of how like in sync they all are within the Pussycats, and Archie's kind of just like flying by the seat of his pants, and Val doesn't know how to work with that and is feeling a lot of pressure to perform well in the talent show since this is her first time performing without the Pussycats. So it seems like this old Val Veronica switcheroo is not going as well as maybe Archie thought, which makes sense because he's not that smart.
Yeah. We have 3 drinks during these scenes where it's obviously Archie acknowledging music with Val. Then we have a black characters outnumbering white characters with the Pussycats doing another practice scene, and then a cover of a song with them practicing "I Feel Love" in that scene, which they will play later in the episode.
Yeah. So is that a
Spoilers.
double because it's the same cover? Like, did you count it as a drink for rehearsal and for the performance?
Yes, I counted it as one each because each was a separate instance of them performing it.
It's also a very good cover. I really like their cover of I Feel Love.
Whenever they cover a song, so far in the show, it's usually really good. So the show, but every time I hear like one of the like original songs, a lot of them aren't very good.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Oh, the original songs, like the songs that Archie writes, or original like the original I Feel Love by Donna Summers?
No. Like the original songs, like the ones Archie writes, or
okay, thank God. I was about to like go off the rails here, but Archie's songs, that music teacher guy who refused to coach Archie because he said that his songs were like juvenile and repetitive was right.
Yes, he was right. And I do think this the show is weird in that it places so much value on being like a creative person in its characters, and then it throws in like professional musicians. The only 2 professional musicians we've seen seem to like have nothing but contempt for Archie and Josie and their whole thing being like not good enough, you know?
Yeah. But Josie is actually like very deeply talented. Archie is so handsome.
Yeah. He's so handsome. He's such a good boy.
He's so handsome and so good.
Yeah.
What a wholesome all-American guy.
Yeah.
Great at football, probably.
Maybe. I don't think
I don't know. You're going to have to tell me about that.
I don't think he's going pro or anything. He should probably stick to the music.
He would be a great construction worker.
Great. Yeah. Looks good shirtless, which is I think
that's important
for doing construction work, especially if there's MILFs about, as Reggie has implied.
As apparently they frequently are at construction sites.
Yeah.
Cougar ass, I think.
Cougar, yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay, so it's time for the insane family dinner at Hermione's at the Pembroke. So the Andrews family and the McCoy family convene at the Pembroke. So this is including the parents and the kids. For Hermione, why are the kids invited? Who knows? But it's Hermione's dinner to quote unquote woo the board of the new development, aka herself. So Josie's dad, Miles, is not happy to learn at the dinner that Archie Yoko Ono the Pussycats. And he gives probably one of my favorite lines in this episode, which he explains that Josie is named after Josephine Baker, because he's talking about like how she's been set up for this life, like since she was born or whatever. Which again, immense pressure on Josie. But so he explains he's named after Josephine Baker, only to immediately realize and then say out loud that Archie probably has no idea who that is. And Archie probably doesn't know who that is. Like, he looks at Archie, he goes, "You have no idea who that is, do you?" And, like, doesn't even give Archie a chance to reply, but you see on his face, like, he does not know.
Yeah, that scene was very funny. I love it when a character dunks on Archie, because they're just like, "Oh, wait, you're a beautiful idiot, aren't you? You don't know this."
It's so funny to me because I don't think I really noticed these moments when we were watching the show the first time. Like, you and I dunked on Archie all the time and we were like, "Oh my God, this beautiful idiot." But then to go back and watch the show and actually pay attention, and the characters are saying these things too, is just hilarious to me. I am loving every second of it.
Yeah. And I think I think the Yoko Ono and the Josephine Baker are both drinks. And for the pop culture reference that makes you say what the fuck. And I also believe, even though I didn't write it down, Archie acknowledges music in this scene as well.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, because they're talking about like the vowel situation and like all
Yeah.
that. So yeah.
The
And then Fred gives his presentation, which Miles also dunks on. He hates it, and he calls Fred a dollar chasing gentrifier.
which
Which
like he works in
Miles is so mean,
construction.
but he has like the sickest burns, and I love that about him.
I don't know. The
Um,
dollar chasing gentrifier didn't really mean anything to me because it's like a vacant lot where a drive-in movie theater was. Like no one lived. I mean, it's like it's maybe like a valuable landmark being lost from the town, but Fred doesn't really have anything to do with it, and it's sort of a done
Also, like,
deal.
it's not up to Fred. The call is coming from inside the house. The dollar chasing gentrifier is his wife.
Yeah, his wife facilitated it more than anything. Not that he. I mean, it's. I guess it's clear he doesn't know this, but Fred's just trying to keep his business afloat,
I
you know?
know.
He's
He's
not like,
literally just like this working class guy who's lived in the neighborhood his whole life, and he's just trying to like be able to pay his employees by like getting a mid-sized contract for his company. Like, leave Fred
yeah.
alone.
Like the whole episode episode starts out with Hermione realizing like you're not very good at the business side of this, are you? And he's like, "Don't worry about it. I got a plan." And it's like he needs this
He does
one
not have a plan.
If he doesn't get this contract, his construction company is going to go under.
No. Do you think obviously there's a lot of parallels between the parents and the kids on this show. And I've never really thought about Fred in this way before because I love him so much, but like is Fred actually quite stupid? Like Archie?
I don't know, because he does other things that are like pretty common sense, I would say.
Yeah. And Archie's
He
mom is smart. Like I think she's like a lawyer.
I think Fred is. I mean, I don't think Fred's like book smart or anything, but I think he's like he's.
Are you implying that Fred is street smart?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, he does a lot of like savvy things, but he has integrity, and I think he's good at like navigating hard situations.
Okay, so he's exactly like Archie, but we just like him more.
I don't know if Archie's good at navigating hard situations. He just sort
Okay,
of
maybe
like
not. But
he
he's
just
got integrity.
he just sort of dives in head first and hopes for the best. He's kind of got integrity. That integrity will take a hit as time goes on. Again, he
Oh
does not
no.
seem that concerned about his friend's sister, his best friend's sister, being missing, like at all. Uh,
Hey, he tried to be included. He just got told to buzz off and
you're right.
stick
You're
to
right.
music and football.
You're right. That's true.
Oh man. I don't know. It's real rough. Really rough at this dinner. Um so after the dinner, Josie and Veronica go to Pops together and they have this nice little heart to heart about how dysfunctional and fucked up their families are, which is one of the most relatable scenes in this show. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just really nice to see them like air it all out together and have this conversation that I think is like really productive and nice for both of
Yeah.
them. And
Yeah.
then meanwhile, Archie, once again living in a completely different universe from the other characters, goes home and has a heart to heart with Fred, where Fred says that he'll still be proud of him even if he gets stage fright during the talent show.
Hmm.
Which, like, Fred is doing something here that, like, none of the other parents do in this show, which is actually, like, centering his kid.
Yeah.
Like, all of the other parents, I feel like, would take their kid home and be like, I'm gonna burden you with telling you all about how upset I am about how this meeting went and how worried I am about the contract and how we're gonna put food on the table and all this stuff. And Fred makes the time for Archie to be like, Dad, will you still love me if I do a bad job in the talent show? And it's so sweet. And he has like the perfect answer.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
his yeah, I think you'd also get from like a Hermione or uh someone else, it would be like, well, you're a lodge, you're gonna kill it, and they'd like they might try to like boost their confidence maybe, but like Fred's just like, it doesn't matter. Like if you bomb, if it doesn't go well, it doesn't matter to me, and that's like actually probably what you want to hear from your parent.
Yeah,
So
like that
like,
reassurance.
yeah,
Okay, here's what Fred has intelligence-wise. He has emotional intelligence.
yes,
A
he has
1,000%, buckets
yes,
of it.
tons of emotional intelligence. He always knows like the right way to navigate a difficult emotional situation. You're right, and he's like got a lot of empathy for other people.
Yeah.
Um, and he doesn't shy away from like hard conversations either.
Is
Uh,
this just a Fred Andrews fan podcast? Because low
yeah,
key, I feel like every episode we spend at least 10 minutes of time just like gushing over Fred Andrews.
we gotta enjoy it while we can.
Stop! It's so dark!
I won't say
So
anymore. I won't
dark!
say anymore.
Oh my god. If the listeners don't know.
We gotta
Don't.
cut this out. It's too
Shh,
spoilery.
shh. Yeah, we gotta cut this.
Yeah, it's too spoilery.
Oh man.
Anyway,
Anyway, haha, back to the show.
yeah.
So,
Um,
Hermione, wait, what's happening?
wait,
Hermione, oh, go ahead.
there's two drinks in this scene. Uh,
Great.
for Archie talking about music again and at the talent show, and Fred saying he will still love Archie even if he bombs like Electric Dylan at a folk concert, which I looked up. I don't know if you're aware of this. So Bob Dylan, sort of early in his career when he had a couple albums out and was like a folk icon. He played a concert where he did more of, or he was premiering songs from like a new album that were more rock and roll focused, and he played an electric guitar, and it was at some like smaller folk show, and people hated it. So a poignant reference, one I had to look up, but yeah, I didn't really
That's a good
understand it
one.
in the moment.
All right, so that's a WTF pop culture reference, but actually I really like it. Yeah. So, meanwhile, there's also a dramatic Cooper family dinner. So, the whole family argues about Polly, and Hal and Alice basically try to convince edit. So, Hal and Alice basically try to convince Betty that Polly is delusional and that Betty is sounding a little crazy herself with like all these things she's saying and questions she's having about the whole thing. There's a lot of like gaslighting happening here. And Betty chooses this moment to flat out accuse her dad of murdering Jason Blossom, which mentally I think we're kind of going there with her, but it feels like a really, really big move at this point in her investigation, but she just fucking goes for it.
Yeah.
And Alice says, like, Hal actually doesn't really respond, but Alice jumps in and says, no, he didn't. He, like, would never have the stomach for that. But she wishes that they had killed Jason Blossom, which is a very fucked up thing to say about a dead teenager in your town.
Yeah, that scene was a good Alice Cooper scene, just with like the way she starts laughing at the very idea. And it was a good turn in that like you think you're building up to this like dark revelation, and actually I feel like Alice kind of like immediately is like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Hal would never do that, and like also kind of like emasculates him in the process. So
yeah, because she's like, he wouldn't have the stomach for that. Like, could you
yeah,
imagine? Like, not even that, like she doesn't go to, how could you accuse your father of murder?
yeah,
She goes to, like, what a stupid thing to say. He doesn't have what it takes.
yeah, just an absurd thing to say. Yeah. Have you met your father?
Yeah, yeah. It's like really dark.
Yeah.
So Betty's reeling afterwards. And in the aftermath, she's like in her room. Jughead climbs in Betty's window And this is like a 1, 2, 3 punch of WTF references. Because first of all, just the climbing in the bedroom window thing comes up in so many things. It it always makes me think, I know it's not from this originally. It's probably not even from Romeo and Juliet originally, but it's come up like countless times over the years. But it always makes me think of Clarissa Explains It All, when her like boyfriend always climbed in her bedroom window like that. And like, it's just so nostalgic. And like, why didn't I ever have a boyfriend who climbed in my bedroom window? Who's to say?
I feel like it was the shtick on a lot of shows and movies.
It's like a very nostalgic shtick.
Yeah.
So he climbs in. So that's punch 1. Punch 2, he references Romeo and Juliet and says like, oh, where's the nurse? Are you like free to talk or whatever? And then number 3, he also mentions the yellow wallpaper. So this is like all in one breath that he makes all of these references.
The yellow wallpaper is a drink, and I feel like it's a very Jughead reference because it's like literary. It's like it's kind of like a literary
because it's 19th century lit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to look it up. I heard it and I hadn't heard of it before, and I was like, it's a apt reference to what's going on, and but it's also like kind of a deep cut because it's definitely not a book everyone's gonna have heard of.
That's funny. I don't think the yellow wallpaper is a deep cut, but I don't know. I have a theater degree and I know a lot of people who've done different adaptations and things like that. Yeah. So I might be coming into this with like the wrong perspective.
Yeah, I had never heard of it. And I heard it, I was like, that's a weird thing to say. And I Googled it and I was like, And when I read a synopsis, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very creepy. If the listener doesn't know, basically it's a book about a woman who is locked in a room by her husband, and the room has yellow wallpaper in it, and she stares at the yellow wallpaper and imagines all these things and goes crazy. And it's like, the story is like inside her mind, so you're kind of, it's like a horror story, and you're like going on that journey with her and like realizing all these things in her mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Betty's not quite there yet. She's just pacing in her room. But of course, Jughead has to make a reference like this. So he talks her down from her spiral after the argument, and then he kisses her. So this is our first big Bughead as a couple or item moment.
Yeah.
And Betty immediately ruins that moment by remembering that Polly mentioned where Jason's car is hidden.
Yeah.
And that they need to go investigate that car. So she literally pulls away from the kiss and is like, oh, Jason's car.
Jughead handles it in a very charming way, though.
It's actually really cute.
Yeah.
He's like, you're really going to ruin our moment right now? And it's like very flirty. Like, he doesn't seem to actually mind.
Yeah. Which Bughead, one of my favorite pairings on this show. And I feel like this is like the weird way where they work, where they have like a certain understanding of each other and their like what's important to them that other characters don't quite have that level of understanding.
Yeah, it's a great pairing. They're just so compatible, and I feel like they really like vibe and get each other. And also just the actors have so much chemistry with each other. And I think they dated in real life for a while during this show. And
I think they did.
It definitely shows. I'm guessing they probably weren't yet at this point since it's still so early days. But like already you can really see that the chemistry is flying between the two of them.
Yes.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Hermione wants to award Fred the contract for the development after the disaster dinner, but she reveals to Veronica that Veronica, has actually been made an officer of Lodge Industries while her dad is incarcerated. So she'll also need Veronica's signature to approve this because they need like 2 signatures from the board. And in a very high school, very Veronica way, Veronica tries to use this situation to basically give her mom an ultimatum, like, to stop dating Fred. So she says, great, I'll sign that if you agree to stop dating Fred. And then Hermione turns around and out Veronica's Veronica by just forging her signature.
Yeah. I always think both times I watched this in preparation for this episode, Hermione's answer to Veronica when she makes the ultimatum, I always think it's interesting where she's like, well, I can't do that. Like I don't know what that's supposed to mean, like acquiescing to your daughter on that type of a thing, or
yeah, to me it seemed in the moment like a kind of reasonable thing to say, because you can't acquiesce to like this insane ultimatum from your child about who you can and cannot date. Like, and it seems like she's just gonna find another way to get Fred the contract, or just not get him the contract, and kind of put her like integrity first.
Yeah.
But then instead she's like, no, I'll just forge your signature.
Yeah.
And completely undoes any ideas about integrity.
Yeah. Very odd.
Yeah. Yeah. Very Lodge family dynamics here. This is really like, when you think about Veronica and like who she is in the early episodes, she's not so much this way, but like kind of how she becomes of this kind of like scheming, manipulating type of person. It's like, she's only the student. Hermione and Tyrum are the professionals at this. And this is where you really see that side of Hermione come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's finally the day of the talent show, and emboldened by the heart-to-heart with Fred, Archie talks to Val and basically releases her back to the Pussycats because he doesn't want to go down in history as their Yoko Ono. And he also feels now like he has the courage to sing alone. And he says, I was born alone, I'll die alone, and I'll sing alone. Which sounds really like dark and emo, but he says the whole thing with like a smile on his face.
I believe
it's so weird.
Yeah. I believe I thought, like, it sounded so weird and specific. I believe I thought it was a pop culture reference, and maybe it is, but I tried to find it, and like nothing came up that seemed
I don't
right
think
to
it.
Yeah.
If it is, it's not one that I know.
It's just sort of a weird. I think it's just a weird line they gave Archie.
I mean, the pop culture references don't usually come from Archie because, again, he doesn't even know who Josephine Baker is.
Yeah, he doesn't know any pop culture.
He doesn't know a lot.
He's just a sweet, simple boy with two fists.
And the beautiful voice.
A beautiful voice. And apparently he's either Mozart or that guy. Remember that guy who tried out for American Idol who was kind of a joke? I guess he specifically has a terrible voice.
Archie would never make it on American Idol.
No, Rebecca Black.
Imagine
He's Rebecca Black.
Oh, no.
Maybe I shouldn't be giving Rebecca Black for that, because Friday, it's not.
Look, here's the thing about Friday. We're still thinking about it now.
We're still thinking about it, and it was a fun song. We were the exact right age for it. It was in 2010 or whatever. It's a big deal.
Looking forward to the weekend.
Yeah, everybody's looking forward to it.
Oh my god, why didn't Archie ever cover that song?
Oh my god, you're right.
Honestly, he probably wrote that song.
I would love if this show did like a really like serious, somber cover of Friday.
Where like the River Vixens come out in their cheerleading blacks.
Yeah. It's like really sad. Like at Jason's funeral.
I thought they wore the cheerleading blacks to Jason's funeral, but I don't remember seeing that in his funeral last episode.
Yeah,
so it must be coming up later.
Spoilers. Spoilers. There will be an episode where the cheerleaders show up to a funeral in black outfits.
But it's their exact cheerleading uniform, but just in all black and with black pom-poms.
Yeah. For when you need cheerleaders at a funeral. Yeah.
Oh, man.
They
probably got the idea from Archie showing up in his, like, regular blue and gold varsity jacket to Jason's funeral, and they were like, we like the sentiment here, but the color...
Inappropriate.
Oh my god. Okay, so back to the talent show. Val rejoins the Pussycats, makes up with Josie. They sing I Feel Love, all four girls. So it's the
Hmm.
original three Pussycats plus Veronica. Unlike
Yeah.
Archie, they do not boot her just because Val's willing to perform.
Hmm.
So good job, Pussycats. Unfortunately though, Miles hates it, just like he hates fucking everything in this town, and he does walk out mid-performance.
Yeah.
So rough day for Josie.
Josie and Val reconciling was drink for black characters outnumbering white characters in a
Oh
scene.
yeah, because they're the only characters in that scene.
Yeah, and the cover of a song again, another drink. Um, yeah, and I think that's it for that. But yeah, her dad walking out and her crying, I thought was a really good scene. There's a couple like the Pussycat, like when uh, Veronica joins the Pussycats and gets the ears and everything, and they walk down the hall, and uh, then this scene when Josie's performing. I feel like there's like a lot of good little scenes with the Pussycats where there's no dialogue, but there's like stuff going on, and they're able to like telegraph, like display a lot of like emotions and like interpersonal dynamics in the show.
Mm-hmm.
A sort of light touch at storytelling that this show will lose later on, but like where she's like crying and she has to like turn around and pose because her dad's walked out and she doesn't want the crowd to see her crying, but she can't make a scene on stage because she's like quote unquote a professional, that
Yeah.
so she needs to
She's
like
got
put
like
on a
the
brave
tears
face.
forming in her eyes, but
Hmm.
she's still
Yeah,
singing and still like getting
yeah,
through this like very upbeat disco song.
yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah, it was a really good scene. It reminded me a lot of like, like all these like pageant documentaries and like the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders documentary. Like it just feels, I've never experienced anything like that myself, but it feels very true of like what I've seen a lot of depictions of women who like go through those kinds of processes where you have to like always be on and look a certain way and perform a certain
Hmm.
way and just kind of like smile through the pain type of
Yeah,
thing. It felt very honest,
yeah, yeah. No, I thought it was a powerful scene.
which
uh
if you have not watched the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders documentary, you would love it.
I will watch that. Fuck the Cowboys.
Yeah. One other thing that we like other than Riverdale is cult documentaries.
Hmm.
And the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders documentary is great because, like, I watched it thinking that it was just an outright cult documentary.
Hmm.
And it is, only they don't know that it is. Like, they think it's like, oh, it's like a cute documentary about our audition process. And, like, they do not realize that they are in a cult documentary.
Interesting.
Um, it's really good. It's very
Check.
fucked up.
I'll check it out.
And yeah, fuck Dallas.
Yeah, fuck Dallas.
Yeah. Okay, so meanwhile, back in Bughead world, Betty and Jughead find Jason's car, and it's full of evidence, including his Letterman jacket and like a bunch of drugs. And they start rummaging through everything, and then Jughead's like, "Wait a minute, this is a crime scene, and we're tampering with evidence." So they take photos of everything as much as they can, and then they go to the school to grab Sheriff Keller. And only then, as they're getting Sheriff Keller, do they hear Archie singing on like the PA system, and they realize that they're missing Archie's performance in the talent show. So as much as you can argue Archie does not care about like the poly of it all and like the murder in town and all this stuff, they also are really not thinking about what's happening in Archie's world and like can't be bothered to go to his talent show performance because they're busy investigating this murder.
They're busy trying to rescue Betty's sister from a potentially problematic situation. I feel like
Yeah,
there's
I don't
something
think what they're doing is
altruistic.
wrong, but
Yeah,
they don't care about Archie.
yeah. They missed the performance. He'll sing again.
Yeah, but you get this moment where you like see Betty realize like, oh right, like that's
Hmm.
happening.
True. Good point.
Yeah. So, fortunately, Archie does a great job singing his mediocre song. Everybody loves it. All the guys on the football team who were his detractors are very proud afterwards. They're all cheering. And then after the show, he gives Val a big old smooch in the hallway. So the two of them are also officially a couple this episode. And then Fred and Hermione are out there. They're excited. Veronica approaches them, and Fred's like, great news. I got the contract. And Veronica, you see, like, in her eyes, her realizing that her signature was forged and, like, exactly what happened. And she says to Fred, like, congratulations, I guess you won. Which Fred is probably having no idea what's going on and is just like, okay. But for Veronica, it's game on.
Yeah.
And then Betty, Jughead, and Sheriff Keller make it back to the car, only to find that someone has set it on fire in the time that they went to the school and back. And Betty also learns that Polly has escaped from the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. But where did she go? And that is the end of chapter 6.
Yeah, that the Polly escaping was the first instance of new rule, Rule 37. Someone gets broken out of the Sisters of Quiet Mercy.
Yes.
Which will happen with
from time to time.
From time to time, with surprising frequency, yes. Yeah. It's a good episode. A lot of interesting stuff happens, and a lot of world building
I liked
happens.
this episode. Yeah, a lot of world building. I loved all the weird Catholic shit this episode and kind of the introduction into that world.
Yeah.
Meeting Polly for the first time is exciting. The Bughead kiss. This is like a big one.
Big one. And I feel like any Josie and the Pussycats centered episode is usually pretty good. Like, they usually have a pretty interesting plot.
Yeah. Which, you know, not R.I.P. yet, but R.I.P. sooner than it should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they should have been main characters this whole show. Like, it's so weird to me that they aren't.
It's that thing that happens in shows. Like, I've seen it in a lot of different shows where the early seasons, I don't know what the issue is. If it's just like they have a bigger budget, or the budget they can spread around amongst more actors who aren't as established yet, or something. But like, by the later seasons, the world starts to feel very small. And I think on some level, because they can't afford to have as large of a main cast or like recurring characters on a show. I think maybe that's part of it. I'm just speculating.
I think a lot of it is that they like stay. Well, obviously the show is called Riverdale, so they stay in the town of Riverdale, and like, they believably can't keep all of these characters in the town forever.
But I've seen shows that pull it off, and I've seen shows where all of a sudden it's like a character leaves and they just don't replace them because it's or whatever, or that they do a half-hearted attempt to replace them with a sort of similar character.
I feel like a lot of shows do a shitty job of explaining why all the characters would stay too. Like on Gossip Girl, they do this, like when it's time for all the characters to go off to college, and like, it's always been Blair's dream to go to Yale, and it seems like Serena's going to go to Brown, and like, you know, it seems like all the characters should get split up, but then magically everybody goes to either Columbia or NYU, so that they're all still in New York, and the show can basically continue in the exact same way that it did when they were in high school. And like, that's not honest.
Yeah, it's more believable than a lot of things. And again, for a TV show, like with this show, I suspend my disbelief all the time for all sorts of weird things in Riverdale.
Well, yeah. I mean, for this show, yeah.
But like, the show, that's part of the like magic trick the show pulls off, where you start to forget about it, certain things over time. Like, if you're invested, you'll throw it away. But I feel like what does sort of start to erode that is when the world of the show starts to feel kind of thin, and like it only revolves around a handful of people, whereas like right now in the show, you have all these side characters who get little moments and little time, and the world of the show feels very flushed out, and like it doesn't just exist around the four main characters. They clearly are very prominent, but the world doesn't like revolve around them yet. And like down the road, it will just revolve around them completely. Whereas right now it just feels like they happen to be caught up in something and you're
Right.
following their story. Which I think is a more powerful storytelling device and easier to suspend your disbelief when you're watching it. But that's
Yeah.
my 2 cents. Like a good example is like Game of Thrones. Like by the end of Game of Thrones, there was something about the world in it that bothered me where it felt very small. Whereas in the
Yeah.
early seasons, it felt so like rich and like full of all these like little nooks and crannies and side characters, and you just wanted to get lost in it. By the end, it felt like you couldn't do that anymore because the
Well,
show had
yeah. Well, I
just
mean, so
worn
many
thin.
characters were dead. It felt like everybody either like in the world either died or is irrelevant and doesn't matter.
Yeah,
And then also too, like, it got so fast for them to like move around through the world physically, and that made the world feel smaller too. Like season 1 of Game of Thrones, it takes them like half the season just to get from Winterfell to King's Landing. And then by the final seasons, Dany's like zipping around on her dragons, obviously, but then like everybody else is also just like magically teleporting around with extreme speed, and like distance doesn't matter anymore.
yeah,
But like we just watched this character spend 7 seasons trying to cross the famously narrow sea.
yeah, and that's a good point, and I think that is a hard thing to get away with. But I think what I'm trying to get at is like in that first season of Game of Thrones, and not turn this into a whole Game of Thrones discussion. You
Oh my
have like
god, we
all these.
really could do a Game of Thrones
Yeah, we
podcast.
we totally could. There's all these like little characters. Like there's that prostitute Roz, I think,
Hmm.
who is in the brothel at Winterfell, and then she eventually goes to King's Landing. And there's all these little side characters. There's like the wild men or whatever that Tyrion runs into. There's like it. The world feels like really fleshed out, and like you don't need to spend a lot of time with these characters, but they're there. And
Yeah.
those characters are just not in the later season. Those kinds of characters are just
Well,
not in
yeah,
it.
because they all, like you said, they all die and then they're not effectively replaced.
Yeah, and they could be replaced, but the show just doesn't bother giving those types
Yeah,
of
they're just
characters
like,
screen time
whatever.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if a character gets screen time, you're like, this person's really important, and they're gonna be really important for some reason.
And it's annoying because that's so not how the books are.
Yeah.
Like the books have all kinds of like weird, like random characters, and like you don't always know who's going to be important and who's not going to be important. And that's like exciting.
Yeah, but not to make this a Game of Thrones thing and to bring it back to Riverdale. Like this episode, you got a whole Josie and the Pussycat episode. Val has her own little plot line with Pussycats drama. Like Jughead and Betty have their own plot that sort of intersects with her mom's plot, her mom and dad's plot, and Archie's got his own thing going on that intersects with other characters' plot. There's just like a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I liked this episode.
yeah,
All right, well, we've wrapped up the plot, so should we take a quick break and then jump into the drinking game?
yeah. Let's. Now, would the congregation please open their rule hymnals to hymn number 6? For this week's refrain, where we explain the rules, we're trying something a little bit different this week. As you may have noticed, we tried to go through the rules as we discussed the episode, rather than in a sort of potentially redundant chunk at the end. So the rules in this episode were Rule 34, Archie acknowledges football and music. There were a good number of instances of that. Do you have any thoughts on that for this episode, Meredith?
No, just wondering if Archie will ever think about anything other than football and music.
I don't know. Yeah, it's music heavy, a lot of music butting up against football a little bit again with the football team, sort of teasing him. Next, important new rule, Rule 69, weird Catholic shit. We discussed this a good amount in the episode, and it sort of speaks for itself, but mostly the introduction of the Sisters of Quiet Mercy will trigger this rule a good amount. They're
Love
the
to
main.
see it.
They're the main proponents. Oh, I had one more Archie football and music. When he performs in the talent show, I didn't get that. There was an extra drink that I didn't mention in the main rundown, or him performing during the talent show. Next, we have a cover of a song. There were 3, Wild Thing, and then both I Feel Loves. I think that's pretty straightforward. And next, we have pop culture references that make you say, what the fuck? I missed one during a rundown at 6 minutes. Veronica, when she offers to help Archie in the talent show, says, do you want to be the J to my Bay? Which, topical for us, given the recent allegations against Jay-Z. Have you heard about this?
No.
Also, this is like the 3rd or 4th Beyonce reference that...
Yeah, you're right. Veronica, in particular, loves bringing up Beyonce. Wait, what is Jay-Z doing to Beyonce?
It's not what he's doing to Beyonce.
Okay.
He was named in a civil lawsuit with P. Diddy, and he's being accused of doing something bad to a
I read
minor.
about P. Diddy. I didn't realize that Jay-Z was involved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say he was involved one way or the other, but this is a civil suit, and from what I understand, it's an accusation. That's all we know. Like, I don't think we don't know what kind of evidence there is against him or anything like that. Whereas I think for Diddy, there's like a ton of evidence.
Yeah, there's like a ton of evidence. Yeah,
and he also has a criminal suit. Going against him, so that's very different.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah. Next, we have Kevin Sploosh, which the only instance I had was him talking about his artistic integrity getting compromised, which I thought was a very funny line.
Yeah, that's a sploosh.
Yeah, that's a sploosh. Like, just how, like, serious he was taking directing this school variety show.
Wow, have we had a Kevin Sploosh every single episode so far?
Yeah, but I pretty much just throw it in there whenever we see Kevin and he says something, like, mildly entertaining. Again,
I mean, he's always splooshing.
He's always splooshing. Again, it's like porn. I don't know how to define it, but I know it when I see it.
Exactly.
Next, it's black characters outnumber white characters in a scene. We had a lot of those this episode since it was such a Josie and the Pussycats heavy episode where they had scenes by themselves. And next, we had a new rule, which I missed during a rundown during the gospel, where Rule 94.5, any Betty gotcha moment directed at either of her parents. And this is when she accuses Hal of murdering Jason Blossom.
Well, that's a gotcha.
That's
the first of many, many gotchas to come.
Yeah. After that, another one I missed was every time Betty calls someone an unnecessary nickname, i.e. Arch and Jug. I think it's when Jughead and Betty are in Betty's room, maybe right after they kiss, where she says, I need to know, Juggy, after she realizes Polly and Jason's car may be a clue. And then finally, Rule 37, someone gets broken out of the Sisters of Quiet Mercy building, and this is when Polly escapes in the very last scene of the show. So those were the rules this episode. For this week's verse, I thought we would talk about good old Rule 34. Archie acknowledges football or music.
Whoa. It's crazy because I think I genuinely forgot we haven't featured this rule yet because we've talked about it so much.
It comes up so much, and as I recall, the genesis for this rule, the idea behind it, was we remembered how much it came up in the first season.
That it wasn't coming up anymore. Because that's why it's like Rule 34. Because it does, like,
Hmm.
eventually Archie does find something else to think about, and we would say, like, remember when this show used to be about football and music?
Yeah, remember when like half the plot of every episode was like Jughead and Betty trying to solve a murder, and Archie worrying about his musical ambitions.
Yeah. So, like, in these early episodes, I feel like this rule is absolutely killing us. But then later, like, when it comes up later, it's going to be a big deal because it's going to be like, oh man, like, Archie remembered about football.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Archie like sang a song in this episode. Remember when he used
Yeah.
to do that like every single episode? Remember that was his whole identity?
Right, right. Yeah, it's one of those rules that is, like, absolutely killing us right now, and then we'll have more impact
Yeah.
later on. And Rule 34 is, like, still kind of early days. Like, we probably made this rule in, like, season 2 or 3.
Yeah, season 2 or 3 for sure.
Yeah.
So I think by the end of this season, it's pretty much gonna be we'll pretty much be done with it. But uh, yeah,
But it's nice to enjoy it while it lasts.
yeah, it is. Uh, yeah. So Archie acknowledging
What's
football and music.
Is it too spoilery to ask you what's your favorite Archie era?
It probably is because I feel like I can't describe the era I want to describe without basically describing a plot line for Archie. You know what it is.
Is it when he fights the bear?
No, but it does involve him fighting someone.
When he his romance with Hiram?
No, that is a good one though.
Him fighting poverty in the town by starting his own boxing ring.
No.
That's also a youth center.
No, it is it's when he needs to box to get into college.
Classic one. Classic one. Well, that's like right at the same time as the Hiram romance and the Okanagan Bear. Season 3,
Yeah.
Archie is really like chef's kiss.
You're right. Imagine if we had made the rule, or like after watching him punch that, not a speed bag, but that boxing bag or whatever, if we had made the rule every time Archie punches something, not knowing that in the future seasons that will become his defining personality trait.
That would be every day.
Yeah.
Every day, except this season this season he's not doing enough punching. He's only punched a punching bag one time.
Yeah. He's very pacifistic in this season.
Yeah, but the signs are there because, as you pointed out, you don't actually need to punch a punching bag to train for football.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the rules this week. So it is that time, Meredith, where we answer the question, was this episode Riverdale or liver fail?
I think this was a liver fail, and I think that probably every episode that features Josie and the Pussycats this heavily is going to be a liver fail because of that fucking rule.
The Archie one or just the...
No, the black characters being together.
Well, you sort of tacitly get like 3 rules in synergy with each other because like probably if Josie and the Pussycats are in the episode, Archie's going to be talking about music.
Yeah, but Archie doesn't always interact with the Pussycats.
That's true. But at this juncture...
At this juncture, yes.
Yeah.
And certainly now that he and Val are a couple,
Yeah.
I think we're going to be having a lot more music drinks.
Yeah.
Um,
But then you also get covers of songs too.
And the covers of song. Yeah, you're right. It really is like a triple whammy. So yeah, this is a liver fail.
Yeah. Liver fail. I think there were about 25, 30 rules invoked.
But no finish your drinks.
No,
So that's
no.
all sips.
All sips.
So that's, you're probably still having like 2 beers.
Yeah, it's a good amount. There's a healthy
this
clip.
is liver fail.
Yeah.
It's only a 40-minute episode.
There's a bunch clustered in like little time periods too in this episode. Like you get like 4
it's in
one scene.
bunches.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I still want to do the math of like how many drinks is a drink. Like how many drinks is in one beer or glass of wine or cocktail based on like suggested serving sizes.
Like sips?
Yeah. We'll have to like do this
It's gonna
for
depend on the
science.
person, yeah.
Yeah, probably depend. Yeah, but like, we should like figure out our own averages and see.
Yeah.
Or let us know if any liver vixens are actually playing this game as they watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like how much did you actually drink this episode if you did all 25 drinks? We want to know.
Yeah, let us know.
Well, thanks so much for tuning in to Riverdale, the Drinking Game, the podcast. For next time, please add the following rules to your rule hymnal. Rule 5, Jughead takes off his hat. Rule 39, knock off fictional brand. Rule 68, Penelope Blossom says something crazy. R.I.P. all of us. You can find us on Instagram at Riverdale Drinking Pod, and special thanks to Romantha for the milkshakes. And until next time, we were born alone, we'll die alone, and we'll sing alone.
Bye-bye.
Nice.